Hi, everybody. I'm Jordan Ostroff with Legalese Marketing, and this is Exhibit A Attorneys, where we interview attorneys and other experts around now the world, as of our last two episodes, to help us learn what it takes to be the Exhibit A of a successful attorney. Today's guest, Filippo Piras, comes to us from Copenhagen, Denmark. He's with the company Shield. If you're on LinkedIn, if you're interested in growing LinkedIn, you have to have heard of them, but I will let him take away with the real intro here. So thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks a lot, Jordan. Thanks for inviting me here. It's really nice of course, to talk to you and also to learn more about legal companies as well. I mean, this is kind of a new thing for me actually to talk about a legal and personal branding. From what we saw here at Shield, legal companies, lawyers, or legal tech are really, using more and more LinkedIn, for marketing and personal branding.
And so tell us a little bit about the Shield app. I mean, that's basically designed to help create that brand through LinkedIn, right?
Correct. So to put it really simple, right? So I'm gonna avoid jargon and complex words. Shield is a LinkedIn analytics tool to measure the impact of your organic content on LinkedIn. So let's say every time you post a text, a video, a poll on LinkedIn, with Shield you're able to measure, how many views, likes, comments, shares, and you're able to measure all these aggregated content stats across multiple months, across custom date periods, and also across multiple people in your team. So it's a solution for both individual users who want to develop a personal brand on LinkedIn, and also for teams who want to monitor how their campaigns are performing on LinkedIn.
And what is your actual title at Shield? Because I know it's really interesting the way that you all have it set up.
Yes, so my title is actually growth. So I'm basically, this working as a hybrid between sales and marketing to make sure, we kind of grow our revenues month over month. So that's basically what I do. I'm a revenue operator, if I can. I don't want to, I don't want to use one of those super long LinkedIn title. I think that's what I do. I just work between sales and marketing to make sure, we're getting the right people on the platform.
Well, and it's interesting because I think that position sounds so simple, but like nobody's doing it. And really, like you end up having marketing pushing what they think makes sense. You have sales talking about what clients actually care about, but you don't always have that bridge, which can be, I mean, $1 million piece of information going back and forth.
It's true. It's interesting because a lot of times, people just perceive like sales and marketing as like two completely different words. In my opinion, it's like they're really similar. They're like way more similar than people expect, right? It's just about kind of coordinating and working closely with each other, right? So for me, I especially also we have this perception of the marketing as sales roles at Shield that is like, okay, they're actually really similar, right? And they shouldn't be treated as separate entities, but they should just like coordinate together. So I talk to the marketing team like once every 2 days, and we kind of align and coordinate all our activities together. And I think also that's why my position and works pretty good, just because I really communicate a lot with the marketing team.
So, and it's great. So today we're going to talk about the top 7 tips on becoming visible online. But before we dive into that, once we're done with this episode, if anybody wants to watch our last episode that aired last Thursday, where we had Rebecca Bonington on, also our first international guest, now you being our second international guest, who talked about building a world-class law firm and went through, revenue and top value and a number of tips and tricks you can put together to do that. So, but that being said, before we dive into this, I think Honestly, it's one of those things where like I think Shield has to have somebody like you because the entire program is designed to take like where the engagement is and then trying to link that to sales, to link that to content marketing, to link that back. And so it makes total sense that they have you in that role, which I think is great. Can you give us sort of that overview of, you know, what are the 7 tips, and then let's start diving deep into them?
Of course, of course. So I think we can provide a lot of tips, right? On how you can establish an online presence on LinkedIn. So I'm gonna just provide some tips that are easy to implement because
Perfect.
I mean, also, I have to be honest. I started posting on LinkedIn 11 months ago, so I'm actually, learning by doing all the time. And the thing is that I would say the first tip is just like start posting. Just like, and this might sound obvious, but like a lot of people might have this writer's block on social media that can prevent them from a lot of opportunities, especially on LinkedIn. So, especially for lawyers or for people working in legal who are knowledge workers, right? You are knowledge workers. I will start from that. So, as a knowledge workers, why not sharing your knowledge on social media? So, and your actually reputation, your personal branding is super important on this sense, because by your knowledge you can establish yourself as a um, top of mind professional. So first tip is like just start posting content. The second
And
tip,
hold on, I want to jump in before you go to that one. And I think
yeah,
that makes so much sense because I always hear the pushback of like, well, if I share everything, people will do it themselves. And I'm always like, yeah, they might, but the ones who do that are totally not the people we want to work with. Like if somebody's going to watch your YouTube video or read one post on LinkedIn and think that they can be the lawyer on their own case, they're going to be horrendous as a client to have. So I'm with you. Start posting. Love it.
start posting, and it doesn't have to be perfect, right? I mean, the first post are gonna go, probably really bad. There's just, and you need to stand underperforming post for maybe 1 month. Like my first post was just getting nothing, but like literally nothing. So I think the first tip is just like start posting, and you need to tolerate some failures, especially in the first period. Second tip is to actually have a clear content strategy in mind. So what does it mean? So in order to establish an online presence, it's critical to have some content pillars. So those 3-4 topics you want to be known for. So these 3-4 topics, content pillars, are gonna build your content strategy. So of course you're not gonna sit on the chair and just stare at a piece of paper and say, okay, today I don't know what I'm gonna post about. So just have, you want to share what you want to be known for. You want to share your best practices. You want to share something that can support other people in their day-to-day life. So usually a personal brand should never be about you, but should be how you support other people through your content.
So I love that, and that's why I tell everybody like I have the easiest job because I own a law firm. I guess I still am a lawyer, but I used to be a lawyer, and now I market to lawyers. So basically, I always try to share the stuff that I wish I knew sooner. So I'm trying to talk to that law firm owner about growing their place with marketing, hiring the right people, being a better leader. Those are the things that I'm really trying to hammer, having been through those, and so it always makes it a lot easier. One, to know what to post, and two, to know what to be known for.
Exactly. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect at the beginning, but the fact that already the pillars, the topics that you can touch and might resonate with your target audience, that's already good, because then it's just about putting the content out there. So the third tip, and this is something that it's really critical, do not reshare company page posts. Do not reshare external links on LinkedIn. This is really critical, because if you actually reshare company page post, or you are resharing links blindly, you're basically redirecting users outside of LinkedIn. and so the algorithm won't really favor your post. So if you really want to share a link on LinkedIn, maybe it's better just to create an original piece of content, tag the company, maybe tag your own company, tag another company, and then add the link in the comment section. This way you'll actually increase the engagement and you won't redirect anyone outside of the platform.
Yeah, I always tell people it's linked in, it's not linked out.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good way to put it down. It's just at the end of the day, LinkedIn monetizes by keeping people in the platform, and
Well,
they
that's going
also
to be this. Sorry, keep
no,
going.
no, 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 no. And I would just say that they also monetize through the paid plans, right? So, of course, they want to have people connected on LinkedIn to react and engage with other people, comment and content.
Right, and that's going to be the same on every social media platform. They're getting money as you scroll through for those ads. So the longer you stay there, the more you keep people on the platform, the more they want to reward you. Like for TikTok, they're doing it literally by having the creator fund. For other ones, they'll reward you by, showing your stuff more, keeping your stuff going. So I love that. Don't send external links. If you're going to have them, put them in the comments.
Absolutely. And the fourth tip, which is something really underestimated on social media, but on LinkedIn as a whole, it's just like take 15 minutes per day to comment on other people post. You don't have to take an hour each day to comment on other people post, but try to take 15 minutes every day just to comment on other people post. Let's say you take 15 minutes to comment on 5 or 6 posts, right? This way, of course, the LinkedIn algorithm favors you, but also, you're just being social on social media. And that will make the process way faster than just actually sharing content.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the more that you can focus this to people targeting the same audience you're trying to target, the better you're going to get, because LinkedIn's going to link you to that comment, to that audience, to that area, to that, whatever it is.
Exactly. And that, leads me to the next tip, which is actually comment on industry related hashtag. So what you can do is that, you just need to type on the LinkedIn search bar a specific hashtag related to your industry, or an hashtag that your ideal customer will follow. That's also interesting, because let's say what I do and what we do at Shield. So let's say, we want to engage with people who are really into personal branding. So what do? I type on the LinkedIn search bar hashtag personal branding, and then I click on post. So I'm gonna view all those posts related to personal branding, right? So if I'm gonna comment on those posts, I'm going to start altering, let's say, my feed. So I'm going to have more and more posts about personal branding. So I know that every time I'm going to comment, I'm going to be probably in front of those people who might also be interested in using Shield.
And you're doing that just from the search bar?
Yes.
Okay. Breezy, can I screen share so we can show this, or is that going to throw off your thing?
Say again?
I'm asking Fabrizio. We're good? All right. We're going to try this because
yeah, sure.
I didn't realize it was that simple.
Yeah,
so
and
hold on.
Sure. No, please.
So here is my LinkedIn feed.
Yeah.
I think that we were pulled up there. And so you're just saying search bar up here, hashtag, personal branding. Of course, I'm going to get personal injury first because that's lawyer stuff.
Yeah.
And so you're just going through and LinkedIn saying, what comes up here is some of the big things.
Exactly. And what I do is of course, I'm going to follow and comment all those hashtags that have a lot of followers. So this is important because you don't want to comment on hashtags that don't have many followers. But you see, Jordan, if you go all the way above, this hashtag has more than 10 million followers. So I know that this is actually relevant.
All right.
So
Fantastic. I'm going to go follow that. So let's.
exactly, because this is really critical, right? You want to follow that hashtag that has a lot of followers and that your ideal customer will follow. That's also important, right? So let's say, if you are maybe a fintech company, right? You might want
Right.
to follow the hashtag fintech, or you might want to follow an hashtag that your ideal customer will follow. So of course, this might require qualitative data from your customer, and you might need some research. But this is critical because comments are content, and people underestimate how important is commenting on other people's posts to drive awareness and inbound.
I love that. Comments are content. And then obviously, as y'all can see, the lawyer marketer that I am. So I have my branded hashtag, and then content marketing, law firm, and lawyer become my most recent posts or most recent hashtags, I guess. Cool. Fantastic. Thank you so much for that.
Of course. And because it's something that not many people do, but if you identify the right hashtag that your ideal customer will follow, and you start also using yourself your hashtag, but then it's gonna make things way easier and quicker, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because I noticed that like maybe a year or so ago, LinkedIn was giving you a lot more like this hashtag is trending, and then it went away. And now I've seen it a little bit more recently. I would say I didn't see that for about 9 months. So it does look like the hashtag stuff is coming back.
Absolutely. And I think it's just about researching the right one. And of course, different industries have a different relevant hashtags, right? Let's say in my case, it's easy to select the right hashtag because I know that personal branding is a mega trend.
Right.
And I know that, let's say, our product fits that specific hashtag, right? I also have other on, but as a whole, it's really important. And it's such a underutilized feature, right?
I think that like that's the thing that's interesting to me about LinkedIn is I think they have all these features, articles, and I think articles don't go anywhere. They have stories on here, but that's only accessible for mobile. And so like they're trying to put all these things in, but at its core, the hashtag feature in post or commenting on other people's posts ends up being the core functionality of LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially commenting is critical. I know I'm really placing a lot of emphasis on this, but commenting is so critical. And the nice thing about commenting is that like when you comment, properly on other people posts, you can then reuse these comments as your future posts. So you can repurpose them as future posts. So if you're commenting right, and you see that your comments are getting a lot of traction, well, you can just reuse them. So this is just saves you a lot of time.
Yeah, and I think that's the strong point is we're not saying to comment like, oh, that was a great post. We're saying to add actual thoughtful engagement to it, additions. That's what I always like when people are like, hey, these are my top 5 tips for this, anything to add. And so you can go through these comments and get another, 50 or 100 ideas on some of the best tips, but also get into some of those conversations with the other commenters. And then, you may be sitting here with only 500 LinkedIn followers commenting on somebody who's got 50,000, and then your comment's going to be seen more on their post than it would on you making it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And like the more you're active on the platform and the more your quality are your comments, the more likely people are going to see your profile, as you said, Jordan. And then the next tip that I think it's really valuable is just really valuable. I mean, I learned how to do it myself in the last few months. But DMs, like, the chat is critical. It's about building the relationship over the chat. And you build relationship by standing out. And how do you stand out? You stand out by sending video messages, sending voice notes. So these are just ways that you can use to stand out. So instead of just sending normal text, you can also test that. So A personal branding or an online presence starts from content that you can improve weekly, and by having solid relationships over the chat.
So correct me if I'm wrong though, like you're not messaging people in the chat immediately. You're going to have some conversations with them through comments, their posts, they're going to write on your post, and then you're going to move to having that more one-on-one conversation.
Correct. So I try to sell anything after I have like 8-9 touch points with a person, because I also might be relevant if that person might benefit from shield for the company or for personal branding, right? So I try to have a lot of touch points, just to build a relationship, right? Because I don't want to pitch people for something which is not relevant for them. So I want to understand what does this person need. Sometimes I also give a lot of tips to people who ask me for some help on how to start posting on LinkedIn. And of course, I just build a relationship, and then that's just easy, right? And the nice thing about organic content, is that like organic content start a conversation at scale. So you don't really need to connect with people without anything to say, but people already know what you do, and people sometimes just start conversation with you from something that they read from your content.
Yeah, and it's always interesting because I talk to people like, it's the same thing like you're going speed dating. You're looking to go on a date with somebody, go to a speed dating event. So in LinkedIn, like people are supposed to be there for networking, to build that personal brand, to engage with other people. So as long as you're not coming in on spamming a million people with the same sales pitch, people should want to have a conversation with you. That's the purpose of the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really about, talking to people. I mean, sounds really obvious and banal, but it's just really about waiting, a lot of people are just in a rush sometimes to pitch you on LinkedIn. I think it's just about, focus on weekly, and just start conversations. And even though these people might not be your prospect, it's still good to network for both, right? It doesn't have to be like on one person. Both people should benefit out of this relationship. So, and it's about building an audience through content and thoughtful questions.
The beauty of it is like, I don't even remember how you and I connected on LinkedIn first, because there's like 6 or 8 other people that I follow that always talk about Shield, and then you'll jump in and talk to them. There'll be a great conversation, or they comment on one of your posts. So it's always crazy to see like the same people coming up through other people that shouldn't really know each other. The more you build those relationships on LinkedIn, the more you become somebody that's showing up to somebody else connected with 4 or 5 different people that they don't know each other anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really about being consistent at the end of the day. It's just really about, you don't have to post. I don't agree with people who are, who say, okay, you need to post every day. This is not really scalable, let's say, in the long term. It's just about being consistent week over week. So it's better to post twice per week consistently for week over week, rather than just posting once per day for like 3 months, and then you're just like too tired, you're just like burnt out, and you just say, okay, stop, I got enough, this is taking me a lot of times. Also because it's complicated, just to push out quality content daily. Like I'm not able to do that myself.
Well, I will say though, so I post on LinkedIn more than every other platform, probably almost as much as every other platform put together, because I think LinkedIn gives you the longest view of good posts. Like LinkedIn will run a good post for a week, at least from my experience. Other ones, like by the time, for Facebook, you post something else, your other post is done. Like it's pushing the new one or it's not. So it's always interesting to me to see that you can get with that consistency, you can get so much more traction over that week, even if you're only posting 2 or 3 times. Or if you're posting 2 or 3 times per day, you might have 5 or 6 posts getting commented on at the same time, which I think is awesome. And I don't see that on, at least for me, I don't see that on any other platform.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. What we saw in terms of data is that like when you post, a lot of times in a day, you might risk to actually cannibalize the reach of your post. When you post, a lot of times in a day, because also LinkedIn wants to prevent, to show the same person's content all the time. So that's what we saw. Because of course a lot of people were just like posting, 7-8 times per day, right? So we actually saw that.
So do you know what that top end number is? Like 3 or 4 times a day is okay, or that's the most, or do you know?
So in my opinion, just like, and I mean, also we checked on data. If you post once per day, I think it's already like a good consistency,
Makes perfect sense.
Like once per day, like, and this relates also to the last tip, which is actually, okay, what's the structure of a good post? So the structure should be like this. So imagine you have 3 sections, right? So the first section should be the hook of your post. So the first line should encourage people to read the second line, right? And this is really about what copywriting is all about. So you should just encourage people to read what's next. So the first line should be about, what you want to talk about. The second line should be the body of the text. And the third line should be an engaging question, right? So try to remove what's unnecessary. Try to focus on the core of the message. Especially in copywriting, what's really important is that the message is clear, relevant, and it's value adding. So of course, value adding is such a really abused term lately. So I'm gonna also explain what I mean by value adding. Value adding can have multiple connotations. So it can have, it means cheering up other people's mood. It also means, to provide some learnings or best practices that other people might use. It can also be just to share your perspective. So I will sum it up this way.
Makes sense is that one post should be focusing on something that they can start or stop doing within like the next 24 hours. So you're going to triple your close rate in a day. This is not you're going to, increase your leads tenfold with one post. It's going to be those things that you can do, incrementally to get there. You break those up in each post.
For instance, these 7 tips that we just like talk about, you could easily, create, I don't know, 3-4 posts for each of the tip we talked about, right? I mean, imagine just say, do not share external links blindly. And then, you could just provide a solution to that. It's like, instead, tag the person, tag the company, and add the comment and add the link in the comment section. That could be a post, and that's something that people could just, do it straight away. They could just like implement it today.
Yeah, I love that. And then the only other thing that I want to make sure that I add is, I know you're talking about commenting out. I also think you need to comment. Like if people comment on your post, I think you need to engage with that as the author. There's nothing that turns me off more than like I've commented on somebody's post 10 or 15 times conversation. Like what's the point?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really about taking the time for it. And I know that sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming to reply to all the comments. But you need it's just about being nice. I don't think it's even like to get something in return. It's just about being nice. Because if a person has just put the time to actually comment and share the perspective, I think he's just kind, respectful, and polite. to take the time and say at least, thank you, and maybe try to take the conversation further. So what I do is that I know that sometimes for me it's just tough to reply to some comments because maybe I'm doing some other stuff. So what I do is just like I reply the day after to all the comments.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's merit to that. I think from a LinkedIn standpoint, then it pushes your responses back to them 24 hours later. It keeps everything going. But yeah, I mean, what a great problem to have. You have too many people engaging with your content to have the time to go back and respond, which I haven't hit that yet. But I just, I always feel like that dog coming for a treat, right? Like you went out of your way to comment on those, to build that engagement, to put something thoughtful, and like you want to get rewarded with, that dog bone of a comment back, some actual conversation from it. And I think you guys do a fantastic job. I know you have, you guys were doing, I remember you guys were posting a Shield walk time. And so somebody posted me like, oh, that's every Wednesday or whatever the day was, very quickly to jump on another one. So that was great to see.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Jordan. And I mean, we know, for instance, that our audience is on LinkedIn, right? So we went all in on LinkedIn, and we try to be as responsive as we can, and we try to just stay top of mind at the end of the day. Of course, we're doing that because we're a community-oriented company. But we know we do also that because we notice that how important it is for companies to have an online presence through their employees. So, and this is challenging, right? Because we are building right now a culture at Shield where everyone, is encouraged to post on LinkedIn. We're not pushing anyone, right? Because it's social media, so of course, it has to be something spontaneous. It has to be something that comes out generally. But we are just sees the value for themselves and for the company when they post online. So we notice that the more consistently we post across all of our employees, the higher the talent acquisition, the talent attraction, the higher the talent retention, the more brand awareness we have as a company, and the more inbounds we get as a company. So it's a clear win-win for both employers and employees. And I mean, we know that some of our employees might not be there like in a few years, right? But it's still important for employees to have an online presence. Also because, I mean, we don't really know when this corona will be over, and we don't know actually, if things are going to change that much, right? Even when corona will be over. So it's just good to have an online presence.
Well, the thing that's always interesting to me is, for the longest time, we always talked about how for every small firm, and even for every medium-sized firm, everyone's in the marketing department. Like you are in the marketing department no matter what your job is, because what you do 1,000 times during the day could get you a client or not. If you're cutting in front of everybody in your car on the way to work and you've got the firm license plate or something, that may turn people off. But from what you're talking about, it almost seems like everybody's in the customer service department. And the more that you're engaging with those people, commenting, and the quicker you do that, the more I think people get that idea that Shield has great service to customers, because you all are, serving from a social media standpoint that great communication and conversation.
But you said super good. I couldn't have said it better. People perceive that we're all doing customer service at Shield. This is partly true, I would say. Of course, we have people who are actually doing a lot of operations. They're working on the back end to, have all the customers sorted in the best way possible. But the truth is that even our CEO, Andreas, he replies to all the comments, of course. But, he always redirects people to the right plan or to the right person. So he still does that, which is kind of crazy, right? Because not all the not all the CEOs do that. And I think it's just about reply quickly to people, I mean, we're all busy, right? And we don't we don't want our time to be wasted. And of course, we appreciate when people are responsive and they are customer oriented. So I would say that's kind of our motto at Shield. We're customer oriented and community oriented.
Makes perfect sense. And also, I mean, from the standpoint of building that strong culture, the more that that culture comes top down, the easier it is to get everybody to buy in because, if you're seeing the CEO do it as well, and if they're able to do it, you kind of feel, I don't even want to say obligated because that's not the right term, but you feel more empowered to follow that rule or that guidance.
Yeah, no, I think it's a super great point. It doesn't have to start necessarily top down, but the top down approach works so good. Like I have to say that when I joined Shield, I was not posting like so consistently as I'm doing now. But often, like Andreas, our CEO, who's really brilliant, and he takes still the time, to go through all the comments, reply to people, reply to all the DMs. It's crazy, right? It just leads people through example, and I think that's what culture is all about. You just lead by example, and you have these values that guide people in their actions, right? And I mean, I've been crazy surprised when I joined Shield because I was like, okay, I see the benefits of posting online for myself and for the company. So I know that this is the right thing to do.
Makes perfect sense. All right. So as we get towards the end, I know you shared, our 7 biggest tips for being visible online. I think those are geared towards LinkedIn, but I think all that stuff will fit on pretty much every social media platform.
Yes.
Any other insight or anything you want to make sure that we cover as we get towards the end of this conversation?
I mean, it's just about testing at the end of the day. Testing what really works or not with your content. So that's also why it's important, to be consistent, because if you actually post consistently and you test a topic, you test a day, maybe you test a format as well. Maybe you might say, okay, is text working better than video? Let's test that out. And of course, I myself, I'm lucky because I joined Shield, right? So we have the platform in house. So I've been able to test and validate, assumptions with data. And what I've noticed is that, like, when you have data to back up your assumptions and you pair these assumptions with data online, well, like, that you're actually sound more reliable than a person just with an assumption.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And we have never had access to more data. I mean, you have the ability for, I don't know, what do you have? 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. So you've got the ability to have, hundreds and thousands of responses over the course of whatever it is to see what really makes the most sense for your audience.
Absolutely. And it's really about knowing what works or not, because if I actually don't know what specific post over a specific time period is working or is not working, it just makes my life easier. Of course, I could still post on LinkedIn, but just the fact that I have the data in front of me, it makes my life way easier, just because I can focus more on this content strategy, on what's really resonating or not, rather than on collecting data, on Excel.
All right, fantastic. So before we get, I want to talk about our show on Thursday. So our next show will air Thursday at 1:30 in the afternoon Eastern time. That's going to feature Josh Barron, who coincidentally enough, I first connected with on LinkedIn. And then come to find out we have a bunch of acquaintances, friends, coaches in common as well. So Josh will be on Thursday talking about the hidden secrets to finding clients with great referrals, a topic that is near and dear to my heart, getting clients from great referrals. All right, but Filippo, I'm not going to let you go without the biggest thing. So I'm going to actually read what you wrote earlier and then fill me in on there. So we always talk about, if somebody's been listening to this for the last 40 minutes, they take nothing from this except this one thing. What's the biggest, most important takeaway? And you wrote, which I love, inexperience turns into mistakes, mistakes turn into learning, and incremental learning turns into success. as well as do extra and share your learnings with your team to make people around you better. Whether those are your most important takeaways or not, I think both those points are so important, because I think we're constantly focused on not making mistakes when really it's only a mistake if you don't learn from it. And instead, having things not go your way oftentimes helps you become that much better the next time around.
Yeah, and I mean, these two principles for me have been really key, right? Because I mean, I make mistakes all the time, right? I mean, as everyone does. And that's also something that we try to have as a kind of a company's culture, right? It's like, and pass me the term, doesn't matter if you screw up, we have your back, because we know that actually you're putting, effort, and whatever. If you screw up, or we're with you, and whatever. So it's all about doing extra. If you're proactive, if you are energetic and dynamic person, who cares if you make mistakes? So that's something we really value, and that's the core of our culture, right? We're just like, yeah, I mean, whatever, like, next. That's something that happens to everyone. We all make mistakes, right? Because we're just learning by doing what we do. And then, of course, it's just about making other people and elevating other people. Even today, right? I mean, I myself today didn't really work that much on the task that I wanted to do. I spent, 2 hours with other people saying, okay, maybe we can work on this better. I was just sharing, the sales playbook that I wrote for other people, so they can read and they can get, what I learned in my, short career. And say, okay, look, you can actually read this for this specific situation. So I think it's just about that. Just share what you have learned with other people, with the other colleagues. And this is also, it's a great also when you want to post content on LinkedIn. Share what you've learned with other people. Because like your online presence shouldn't be about you, but it's also more about how other people can benefit from what you know and what you have learned.
Fantastic. All right. So we have shieldapp.ai for people that want to get more connected with Shield. We've got linkedin.com/company/shieldapp, and we've got linkedin.com/in/Filippo Piras, so that people can connect with you as well. Anything else to share? Anything else to let people know about? Anything else that we can do for you?
No, I mean, I think we covered a lot of stuff. I think for those who want to just like start posting on LinkedIn, my suggestion just like start posting at a frequency you can sustain over time.
Makes perfect sense. Love it. Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Of course, my pleasure. Thanks a lot to you, to Fabrizio. I mean, it was really nice. I really enjoyed. You really, invited me on LinkedIn like a few months ago, and both of you have been really kind throughout the process. So thanks a lot. My pleasure.
Wonderful. Well, now that the camera's about to get shut off, we'll start screaming at you.
Just kidding. Go for it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Exhibit A Attorneys. If you're interested in becoming the Exhibit A of successful attorney, please check us out at legalesemarketing.com, EASE.